Well, President Biden's performance in the first presidential debate of the year for the 2024 election against former President Trump. Well, President Biden did struggle with his delivery at multiple points during the debate. Poor performance leaving voters increasingly concerned surrounding Biden's age and raising some questions about whether or not Democrats should replace him. Now, we spoke to a number of guests today about how a potential Biden dropout could happen and who could replace him as a Democratic nominee. Our very own Rick Newman here with more on that. And Rick, when we talk about some of that reaction that we did get here so far this morning, I think my takeaway so far is just the uncertainty that this leaves, the fact that we could see obviously a heck of a lot of changes between now and November, and we ultimately maybe don't know who's going to be on the ticket.
Well, it certainly got a lot more interesting. I mean, it's not so much just two boring guys we know everything about anymore. I mean, we now could end up with a new Democratic candidate who's somebody new to the scene. If it's somebody like Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, or Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who most Americans don't really know much about unless you live in those states. I would point out that I think the base case remains Biden is a candidate, and he has to step aside. I mean, he has to agree to step aside for somebody else to become the candidate. There's no indication yet that that's likely to happen. From the Biden campaign is pushing back aggressively on all of this today, saying, cut it out. Biden is the candidate. He's not going anywhere. So there's a lot more turmoil to come here.
Yeah. And a question about whether or not he does have to step aside to win this election, given that former President Trump is still facing felony charges.
We have more surprises coming. Right. So let's not, the election is not tomorrow. And among the things we know are going to happen is Trump is going to get sentenced for the 34 criminal convictions in the New York case on July 11th. That is just a few days before the Republican convention. Some political analysts say that if Trump gets a jail sentence, could be a game changer in itself. That'd be more tangible to voters than just he was convicted of something they're not sure what. But if he actually gets a jail sentence, or he gets like a home detention sentence and he can't campaign, he has to stay in Florida. That changes things. Then we're probably next week, we're going to hear from the Supreme Court on whether one of the other three trials Trump faces can get started in Washington, D.C. That's the one relating to election interference and the 2021 riots at the Capitol. So there's a slim possibility that trial might still be able to get started before Election Day. We will find that out next week. And I mean, with two candidates this old, I mean, obviously there's a health. I mean, health is an issue. I mean, somebody could slip in the bathtub and it changes everything.
Oh God, well, that would be tragic. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Well, but Rick, what do you think the Democrats' strategy is going to look like, or maybe the better question is should look like here, at least over the coming days when this still remains in the headlines?
The strategy up till now was to make the campaign about Donald Trump. Biden just totally failed to do that in the debate. And remember, it was the Biden campaign that wanted the early debate. We've never had a debate this, almost 5 months before the election. The Biden campaign wanted that because they thought it would be their opportunity to reset the terms of the debate and get everybody focused on Trump. And the exact opposite happened. I mean, it was just a total disaster from a strategic perspective. So can they get, circumstances will help the Biden campaign, perhaps. So the sentencing on July 11th, that will help them try to turn it back against Trump. I mean, there's one other debate scheduled. And in theory, Biden has a chance to recover from a poor performance in this debate that was, a lot of swing voters probably didn't even watch it. So
does that
helps
matter
Biden.
When we have TikTok?
Yes, it matters. So the second debate will matter more because swing voters will be more tuned in. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Biden's going to be 3 months older. I mean, he's not getting younger; he's getting older. So if the underlying problem, by the way, I don't think Biden has dementia. He clearly has like memory recall issues, and he cannot express his. He loses his train of thought. That's not dementia, just to be clear. But it matters to voters. And if he cannot improve his performance, and I don't know why we should think he would improve his performance. Because this is the guy. This is who he is right now. If he can, then he gets another shot in September. But it could just as well end up even worse in September. You have to keep that in mind.